Welcome to episode 16 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I'm Paul LePage.
And we have a new voice for you this week as we're joined by Mike Schad, who heads up the official branch of Worldwide Wolves in Richmond, Virginia. How's it going today, Mike?
It's going great. It's been a great day so far.
So go ahead and tell the listeners how you came to support Wolves and what you've been going as part of Worldwide Wolves in Richmond.
It's a silly story, but I'll share it anyway.
There are no silly stories.
Yes, true. So I have a lot of friends who are Liverpool fans, and I guess it was 2016. I started really watching Premier League soccer as I previously was a strong Jets fan, and that is not a great fan to be. It's not fun to be a Jets fan ever in the past 20 or 30 years. So anyway, I would watch games with them or matches, Liverpool matches with them, and I often just wanted my team of my own. I went about choosing my team. And so the way in which I did it was between myself and my friends. There has been a joke a couple of years ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I did one of those online quizzes for a spirit animal. And my spirit animal was a wolf. So it was like a perfect timing because the Wolves just entered the Premier League. And I was like, which team is going to be mine? Oh, it's the Wolverhampton Wanderers. And started following them. And I fell in love with the way they play. Nuno Espirito Santo's personality, Raul, like all these great players. I've even come to know and love even more as the seasons have gone on. And and then I was on the Worldwide Wolves website one time, and I was like, there's no fan club in Richmond. I was like, I'm a fan. I'm desperate to meet other Wolves fans because I have to listen to my Liverpool friends talk about Liverpool forever and ever and all day long. And I just started a fan club, and my Liverpool friends thought I was crazy, and it's been a lot of fun. I've met some interesting people. It was starting to grow a lot. It's been a slow going. And I think before COVID, we were starting to go meet up at a pub and watch matches and things. And there is a pub here in Richmond called Penny Lane Pub that the owner is a Liverpool fan, but he also lets other clubs meet there and watch matches. And I was like starting to talk to them about meeting up there and things like that. So that's pretty much the story. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm really excited about being a Wolves fan and love watching them play. And yeah, it's fun.
So Paul, as a longtime Wolves fan, myself, I'm a new one. Mike here's a new one. What do you think of these stories about how we came to support Wolves? Because there's a lot of randomness with a lot of us and how we came to be supporters. What do you think of this?
I love it because it's organic in a way. I really like the stories that both of you have got, that it wasn't a big four, top six type of team, or Mike didn't get swayed by his friends who were Liverpool fans. He took his own path and picked out a team that appealed to him. I think it's great that the club finds you often, and you find the Wolves. And I think it's great that it's these new fans that you don't glory hunt, you don't go for the big names or the popular ones or the Manchester Uniteds or the Liverpools of this world. I think it really it shows you how that fandom really takes a bite when it comes to the Wolves and engrosses you. And it blows me away that you get so into it, and the knowledge that you all get in such a short amount of time it is phenomenal. And the appreciation of the game that you've got, and tactics, formations, players, it's brilliant. I love it.
Yes, we love our Wolves community out there, even the neophytes. So we're going to go over what happened the last 3 games since we were on. We had a 1-1 draw against Tottenham.
That was great.
A devastating 1-0 loss to Manchester United. And then that head scratcher on Saturday, the 3-3 draw against Brighton. So I guess we'll start with Brighton since that's the freshest in our minds. That was an interesting
That was
one.
an emotional roller coaster. I don't know how you guys felt watching it, but that first half was so amazing. And then the second half was so devastating. And then that last cross from Adama to Owen, I was like, oh, we're going to win it. And then it just goes over.
Can you imagine if they had won it on that play?
That would have been amazing. That was busy.
It seemed harder to miss at the time, and I was just looking at the screen thinking, why isn't the ball in the back of the net? It was just, and I'm not knocking the kid whatsoever. These things happen, and after the second half, I still think it would have been a tremendous get out of jail card that we played to come away with the win. I think we were hanging on the ropes for much of that second half, and for me, it still feels like a loss somewhat. And back in time, and I'm thinking back to my thoughts at half time, thinking that we'd done okay. We weren't scintillating, but we'd done well, and we'd had a bit of luck. Adama was playing well. He'd won the penalty, which is the first thing that he's done in a good while. So that came off. Obviously, the own goal was fortunate, but we've had nothing like that all season. So I honestly thought that, okay, we're doing 7 out of 10 probably performance, but we're 3-1 up at half time. If we can go on now and maybe I get 2 more goals, 4-5-5-1, something like that, give them a real good confidence boost, which we could have done because Brighton were poor. And we had the measure of them in the midfield in that first half. There, who's a good player, picked up a booking, so he was limited in that first half. And just straight out the gates, straight from the kickoff, just to go down as quickly as we did, it was just what was the thinking? Where was Martino's head putting that type of challenge so early into the half? And it just gave me a bad feeling that I could just sense that equaliser was coming. And again, I think we're lucky to hang on to a draw in the end.
Yeah, I like the lineup they threw out there. We've talked about how you need to be able to break down those bottom of the table teams, and that was the lineup to do it, considering Podence was out with injury, and they were doing a great job. Now, we look at it, wow, they scored 3 goals in the first half. One was an own goal, and one was a PK, so still didn't create as much. But I disagree with a lot of people who said that was our best first half of the year. I don't think that was the case at all. In fact, I'd venture to say I thought the first half against Man U was just as good, even though they didn't score based on the circumstances. But I feel like there were a lot of positives to take out of the result was disappointing, especially since we had their defense on their back heels for a lot of the game. And I'm just glad they still came away with a point, because it felt like there in the last 10 minutes, they were going to lose 4-3.
Then if you watch that foul from on that Rayon got off of, I forget who it was Webster. It was so minor. I don't think they should even called that, and that was in the back of the net. So we could have very easily lost them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always think about when we play these bottom tier teams that are bigger than the Wolves and more physical. It seems like and who rely more on set plays. It seems like we have just a harder time defending the set plays, and also just being more physical. I don't know if it's just that we obviously aren't as big as Brighton. They had a couple 6-footers. I know Dunk is at least 6'2" or 6'3", and he's the one who had the ball in. So it's just problematic when you have Bali out and Raul out, who also defends really well. That's how he got his injury. But when you miss those guys, it's very evident because we don't have anybody to back them up. And we have young guys trying to defend against experienced guys from Brighton. It's just not going to work out.
It's one thing that I thought was really noticeable in that we've become a small team now, where we had that height throughout the spine of the team. If it was Bolly, Dendonka, Raul, all 6 foot plus, presence at corners. Even with the likes of, although he's not a 6-footer, that when Martial doesn't play, that's another guy who defends. He's better in the air than out Nuri. And then it is noticeable, and I think that it's a weakness that teams look to identify. And at the moment, we haven't really got those solutions for it. And
Yeah.
I think that was the reason for him to bring Kilman on, was sensing that aerial bombardment was coming. And I can see why it happened. I don't think it was in a way to park the bus or go ultra defensive. I think it was a move that needed to be made. And we've often said for a lot of times there's no plan B or plan C, but it should definitely be a plan that if we do go with four at the back and we come in for some type of aerial bombardment, or we're starting to get under pressure, then we can switch to a back three again, of three big centre backs that can head the ball away and defend. And all being well, we've got a midfielder that we can bring on with some fresh legs, like Soe, or if Dendoncker had been playing. I think the issue for me with that defensive switch was that there was never an out ball. There was never an outlet. The ball wasn't sticking. Silva didn't really have a sniff at all.
Yeah.
Neto didn't have his best of games, where in the past you could give him the ball and say, off you go, Pedro, and he'd take it up and he'd take a bunch of yards and he'd wear the opposition down. And like his goal against Chelsea, he'd be a threat on the break. The only outlet was Traore for me. And that was where the problem lays, that it didn't stick up top, we didn't create, and the ball just kept on coming back and coming back.
Yeah, right now we have no threat on set pieces except for Saiss. And man, that guy is coming through every time. It's incredible. But I was joking. He's our second best goal scorer right now.
Yeah.
And that goal he scored was amazing against Brighton. He hit it right. So sweet.
But even Arlo White on comms and Lee Dixon, they noticed that pretty much straight away, and they focused in on the three guys. I think it was Size, Cody, and one other. They were the only real threat in the box from our corners, and then they panned out and they showed kind of a semicircle of players. And the comms team said they're set up here for the second phase of play, that the ball's going to go in, but they're going to try and win that second ball and recycle it. And yeah, sometimes it's still a case of trying to get it in there hard and fast and put it on Sais's head, or someone who can run and challenge the ball and be a threat from that first play, rather than look to put it into some type of scheme where you're banking on a favourable clearance or a lucky deflection that can come out to someone and create a gain. I think can often be a waste of a promising opportunity.
And Paul, this is something we've discussed a little bit over text, and I think we're both a little confused about it. The slander of Adama right now, there's just so many people that are like, he's worthless, they need to sell him, blah blah. I don't know what game they were watching Saturday, because he was clearly the best player on the field. Okay, look, we know what his shortcomings are. He can't pass. But he's also, you're asking him, he's going to the byline and crossing into the box, and the only guy there is Moutinho to head it in.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes away a huge part of the game right now. He doesn't have that target like Jimenez. So for them to be blaming Adama just really blows my mind. Brighton's probably still having nightmares about what he was doing to them.
Yeah, I think that's the first time that we've really seen it this season, that it was that Adama of his purple patch from last year. And for me, obviously there's areas of his game to improve on. I'd like to see him running into the box more, like the penalty that he won. I'd like to see him take some more cut in and shoot a little bit more and add that dimension to his game. But to that point, Josh, I still think that he gets some unnecessary criticism for doing just that. If he does cut in and he takes a shot and he misses, it's why didn't he look up, or why didn't he pass? And I think he's such a talent that, yeah, he's not without criticism for sure, but he's a player that relies on form and confidence, that I think everything needs to be done to really nurture that. And if he has been playing with a knock, and Saturday was the first time where he was back to close to 100%, who knows, that might have been the case, and it really showed in his performance. But yeah, when he's missing his major outlet in terms of someone that he can put that ball into the box to and will score like Jimenez did repeatedly last season, that there's that going forwards. And also he's missing the guy who was behind him last season in Doherty. Now Semedo's there, and that's a whole new partnership and understanding that's got to build. And I've seen flashes. I thought Semedo had a good game offensively on Saturday, and he got the assist for Sais's goal. And that's exactly where I want to see him start popping up a little bit more in, because that was a great delivery from a tight spot. He put in another ball previous to that from outside the box that was right on the money. So that's another element to it. I do think the negative focus on Traore is troubling and personally bemusing.
Yeah, I think Traore is such a unique talent that you can't, to sell him would be, I think, quite a poor move. You just can't pick up guys like that who can get to the byline. Like in third gear, it seems sometimes he's not even running full sprint and he's just destroying guys. So I don't know. I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's it's bad. Would be a bad move. I think the thing that he gets so much criticism is he doesn't score goals, and people want to see goals. That's all they care about. And what the other thing that I've seen a lot of people complain about is the fact that Wolves haven't scored more goals, and so they're always looking for another guy to score more goals. And I think it falls to Traore's head, unfortunately, because he does have the ball a lot. But when he has the ball, he's creating opportunities for other people to get in the box and either head it or have a clean shot. And like you said, they're missing Raul, who was their number one scorer, and he got a lot of his goals from Traore drawing 2 or 3 players away from him, and so he could shoot on goal. That's
or be on the other end of those crosses right at the byline. If we throw out the Arsenal game right now, Wolves are 1 win, 1 draw, and 4 losses without, 2 draws without Raul. And it's tough. That's really tough.
It is. It's a poor run of form, and there's some teams in there that we've lost to that we probably wouldn't have expected to beforehand. And it's not troubling to an extent. It's a bad run of form, I think. Hopefully it gets corrected. I don't think it's too dissimilar maybe to how we started last season, but I think the exposure is just on us more now that these injuries have started to build up. It's been a pretty heavy and compact festive period. When we haven't had that momentum or the results to build on, then it gets magnified and blown out of proportion somewhat. Whereas if I'm thinking about it now, if Silva's header against Spurs had gone in, Atasoi's against Brighton on Saturday held out for just a few minutes more against United, it's a totally different picture. Silva in the post against Villa. These are fine margins, and it could have clicked and could have gone completely the other way, and we'd be comfortable and riding high. So yeah, I think it's just a blip. We're gonna come through. We're gonna get some bodies back and do okay, but we got to ride it out, I think.
And correct me if we're wrong. I think we're like 2 or 3 points below where we were last season. I'm not sure, but I know we're
it's
not
right
far
around.
off.
It's right around the same.
It's not. I feel like everybody's doom and gloom. We're not like 20th or anything. We're not in danger of being relegated.
Let's talk about that Man U game, because if you just would have watched the NBC pregame show, you would have thought Wolves were probably going to lose 4-0, 8-0. That's the way it was standing, and they did. They threw out a very concerning team when you're going against Man U and you have such a young squad. But you know what? They came to play, and even though they lost that game, I took a lot of pride in that one, because now Man U's, they're tied up at the top of the table, and those Wolves kids gave them a lot of problems.
They did. I liked a lot of that game in terms that they didn't really show that age, that it seemed like a very mature performance from the likes of Hoover, and up to the end, kind of Kilman and Out-Nuri on the left-hand side. I thought Vitana had a much better game against Man United than he did against Brighton. But the issue for me now, it's only a small body of work that he looks tidy, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we get into that 6-minute mark, and is he gassed? Is his conditioning not where it should be? So are we only getting that 60 minutes out of him? And if he's not really exerting himself on the game to the extent that we need, it is a little bit of a luxury at the moment. But yeah, the likes of Hoover, I thought did great against Man United and gives you a lot of confidence moving forward. That was a good acquisition that he can come in and do a job at right wing back. But also, I think that bodes well for the future if he grows and develops, that he could be a really assured right centre back in that 3 as well. I think he got a lot of elements to his game that fits in with us really. So yeah, again positives, just those fine margins.
And the Spurs game was another one, really tight. They managed to pull out the draw, which was a different feeling draw than the Brighton game. But overall, that one was more hit or miss. There were some positives, some negatives, but they managed to pull out a point in the end.
I think with that one, again, it's come to the start of the game and being switched on, whether it's right from the kickoff in the first half or after the restart. We've got to have that awareness about us that it seemed to lack for that goal for sure. And then again, the Brighton penalty on Saturday. But yeah, I think I was fearing the worst after that going in so early against Spurs. And for a while, it looked like they were the much more dominant team. But I think we came into it a ton, and we were probably unfortunate not to come out with all 3 points from that one.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way they shut down Son and Kane.
Yes, they hardly got a mention. Yeah,
they're assist leader and goals leader right now, and yeah, they completely shut them down, which was really impressive. As you said, like our record defensively has not been astounding the past probably 10 games or whatnot. I don't think we've had a clean sheet. So yeah, for them to go in and shut them down the way they did was I was really impressed. I thought for sure that Kane was gonna have a field day, or Son was gonna light it up. But I was pleasantly surprised. And I thought that first goal was semi-lucky, just poor positioning for Rui Patricio, and it seemed like he got a good kind of nice bounce almost to go in. But besides that, it's good.
The element of keeping Kane and Son relatively quiet was that it was as a back 4 as well, that we weren't set up as in the 5 or the 3 centre backs. That was Cody and Saiz, who are relatively novices as a partnership as well, that they did keep them quiet and marshalled them well. And again, the main man came up with that winner again.
That's when Cody was switched to the right.
Cody on the right and Saiz on the left. And then that was an interesting shift against United, that again, Cody came across once more to take up that right centre-back slot, and it was Saiz that came in as a sweeper. And we've always been saying what happens if Cody's out, if he picks up an injury or if he picks up a suspension, and that seems to show that they've got 2 areas that we could go if that happens, in that we can switch to a 4 if it matches up with the opposition, or Saiz, it looks, could be the guy that takes up that sweeper role. And I think if that's the case, and with Saiz's goal scoring record this season, he's 30 now, but I think his contract's out up at the end of the season. So I'd probably like to see him tied down, but for 2 or 3 years, hopefully in a similar deal to what Marcel's on, that we need that experience, we need that versatility. And he's a guy way back from the original Fosun takeover pretty much, so he's one of our longest serving players. So I think it's important that we get him locked down.
Parado, así está Venezuela. Las indicaciones de Dudamel, roba Hurtado y a correr. Se va el tanque Hurtado.
It's that time of year again, and we certainly could use some help. It is transfer window time, and the rumors are already going. 2 big names that are being thrown about our way are Diego Costa and Christian Eriksen. Are either of those going to happen, Paul?
I'll go in order of those two. That originally I was dismissive of the Costa rumor, in that I was thinking he got released and's looking for one final payday overseas, Middle East or China or something like that. But now that it seems there could be some mileage in it, I'm not gonna rule it out 100%. Could there be better options out there, more long-term ones potentially? But if he is available for some 6 months till the end of the season type of contract, we obviously need someone. And even I feel now, if Raul came back tomorrow, we still need someone to support him from the bench in addition to Silva. And especially with the expanded bench now that we've got those extra bodies that he can pick from, that suggests to me that you need, in 9 position, it's so important that you've got 3 players that can challenge for it, with one being for the future is Silva, but it's someone that can come in, pretty much pick where Raul left off. Now, the only issue for me on Costa is his age, his form. Is he going to come in and hit the ground running? I'm not sure of that, but I think he's a type of player that could come in and do that lone striker role pretty good.
Yeah, I was pretty dismissive about the Costa, and I didn't think that was going to play out at all. And nor do I think he necessarily is a good fit. I feel like in a typical time, I don't think Wolves might consider him at all. His temper and his run-ins with various FA protocols and things that he's done. But I also am intrigued by his passion and ability to put the ball in the net. And I feel like one of the things that we're lacking is a person, a forward, who has passion and can hold up the ball and is willing to, mix it up with those big center backs, like we saw in Brighton.
I think what it's showing with these different formations that we've got at our disposal, and the one thing that's missing to me since Jota's departure is there's not necessarily a natural partner for Raul if they go 2 up front. Now, it may be Neto. We've not seen it. It could well be. I think he's got all of the tools to his game that he could be more of a centre forward. But having that flexibility, that if that signing's made as an attacker, if it is someone that could complement Raul like Jota did, I think that would be somewhat of a coup. I don't know whether that'd be Costa, so that may lead me to look towards someone else who would better fit that second striker role and maybe able to take up a position as well across the front 3, even if he's not solely down the centre. So someone who could take up a role, say, from the left or the right when Raul plays, or if we're in a 3 up front. I think that's the model of play that I'm in towards.
And I pointed out on Twitter, I saw something that I found quite curious. Patrick Cutrone right now is on loan, and it was a loan with an obligation to buy. Well, now it sounds like they don't want to buy him. I guess it had certain clauses in the contract to make it turn into an obligation. And in fact, they're wanting to cut the loan short. Wolves' account wished him a happy birthday, which at first you look at it and go, yeah, okay, yeah, happy birthday to what they're thinking. Paul, have they mentioned Patrick Cutrone anywhere on social, or just any Wolves? Have they mentioned him anywhere since he was sent off?
Well, I think there was some eagle-eyed Twitter sleuths who trawled back through to this time last year, and there certainly wasn't any birthday wishes going from the official Wolves account to Cutrone then. So,
and he was on the roster then.
Yeah.
It seems a little odd one, and I don't know with that. I think Nuno is if you've burnt your bridges with Nuno, you've truly built them, and you're not going to get them back. So I highly doubt it, but out of all of the guys that we've got out on loan, he's the one that's got the pedigree, really, and he's got the experience and having done it at a high level before joining us at AC Milan to come back in. And then again, that goes to the point that he was originally signed as a centre forward, as a competition for Jota. He's totally different to any other attacker that we've got. I don't think he's the type of player that could come in and take Raul's position, but I think there could be a role for him in a 2, maybe as a sole striker, if you've got that number 10 tucked in behind him, that he can link up play with that type of player. But with that expanded bench now, and instead of having kids on there, I'd much rather have Nuno turn round and see him there. But and wouldn't it be great that he gets released to the press, or he does an interview that, yeah, I went away, I've worked hard, look, I've been working on my English. That seemed to be a big stumbling block, that he didn't have any friends, he wasn't settling in the area, he didn't have a grasp of the language. If that comes out that he's gone away and he thought, I've got to knuckle down, I might as well learn the language and see what's going to happen, I'd be all for it.
I thought that he, Catrone and Neto, when they played in the FA matches, they seemed to balance each other pretty well. When he was playing that center forward position and Neto was playing that winger. And that's actually, I think, where 2 of his goals came from. Was like a pass from Neto and interplay between those 2.
Here's my feeling on it, because I've been thinking about it since I saw that Twitter post. So Catrone, I think we can all agree he's not the long-term answer that we originally thought. I think part of the issue here was, and he said it, hey, I'm not one of the old crew. And I think he was disappointed with his playing time, as he should have been, because he wasn't playing behind Raul. But there's a reason for that, because Raul's awesome. Right now, his value is not that great. He bombed with us. He's about to have a loan spell kind of bomb. So we could try and loan him out or sell him to somebody else now and not get very great. Or you just tell him, hey, look, there's a spot for you now. You come, you play for 5 months. If you do good, then there'll be more teams knocking on the door to come get you. And hopefully by then, Raul's good. He was a 21-year-old kid. Yeah, he said some bad stuff about Nuno when he left. Nuno, hey, it's a business. Let's go get over it. If he can be a problem solver, then let's do it. So I say they bring him back. It's going to cost us nothing. Instead of spending money in the transfer market, we got some money. Bring him back. Throw him out there for 4 months. Let's see how it goes. Hey, if he plays well and Raul comes back, then we can sell him for even more. What do you guys think of that?
It seems that there's some flexibility in these loan arrangements. I think Vinagra's been cut short and has gone back to Portugal. So there's definitely some flexibility to do some type of deal as far as his arrangement's concerned. But I'm not desperate that it happens, but I'm certainly not anti if it does. And yeah, I just come back to having that strength in depth that we need, and we need bodies certainly at the moment. And whether it's him or someone else that we haven't yet got, we've got a fixture coming up on Friday that would be ideal to get someone in early and get them gelled and linked into the team. Whether that'll happen, it's doubtful as the days go on, but it's the time to strike, I think, for sure.
Of course, now with the lockdown too, even if they made a deal today, they probably wouldn't be available for how long? We don't even know what the rules are going to be.
Yeah, it's up in the air. I think you got this elite sport label and testing and isolation period that there's probably ways around it, given that it's professional sports teams. But yeah, it's not like you can sign on the Friday and play on the Saturday or whatever it is. So it does need to be thought of.
Plus Brexit now too. Apparently Hulk was all set to come on board. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. And with the new Brexit rules, he couldn't. So there's a lot more than just dollars and cents right now.
There's a lot of complexities.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you guys thought about the younger. His name's Theo Corbu. He's like under the under 23s team. and he was on the bench this past match, but I had not heard anything of him or seen him.
Yeah, Corbianu. He's
Corbianu.
just got a call up to the Canadian national team as well. I think he's on he's another youngster. I think the only thing that's out of his moment is he distinctly plays that wide forward on the right, which is obviously Adama territory. From the bits that I've seen, and it's only been fleeting when they've had the under-23 games on YouTube, he does seem suited to a 4-3-3 formation, but it's quite rigid in the particular role that he plays, and I think that may hinder him a little bit at the moment.
Okay, I was just curious about him, but I know at one point during the match they said he was warming up, but he never came in for Silva.
So in the Christian Eriksen rumors, do we think these are silly or ridiculous? Or because I don't see that happening at all. I could be wrong. Paul,
Yeah. For every wonderful and fantastic rumor that's made up and we dismiss, there's always João Moutinho. So never say never. I think it's highly doubtful, but it would be phenomenal. And I think him as a player that could come in and play in the midfield as a forward midfielder, in a 3, as a number 10, the versatility he brings in that channel from the midfield is definitely I don't really think that we've got. It would be just an immense acquisition of a star player that we've never really seen. So he's 28. He's on a lot of money. He doesn't see it. For all in the world, it seems fanciful, but it's come from somewhere. I think. I'm not sure that the guy tweeting it on Twitter. I'm not sure of his credibility as a journalist, but he's got the blue check mark, so it's not some 14-year-old in his bedroom at mom and dad's making up a spurious rumor after playing Football Manager. So who knows? Stranger things have happened. I don't see it personally, but it'd be fantastic if it did come up. It would.
So let's go into talking no stupid questions. What no stupid questions are in the inbox this week, Paul? Because we got a lot of them.
That's it. No stupid question, folks. It's the part of the show where you get in touch with us and ask anything about the Wolves, be it historical, the match day experience, or our opinions on the current team and players. You can do this via our Twitter or Facebook, or by email to hello@wholelotofwolves.com. Wolfman Jeff has done this on Twitter, and he asks, what do we do with Martial and Out-Nuri when Johnny comes marching home? Move Martial as a centre-back and let Ryan be Johnny's backup, or move Ryan as a winger or midfield backup and keep Martial as Johnny's backup? What do you think there, guys?
I like the moving Martial back to, center back, and then Out-Nuri as the backup for Johnny, because I feel like Martial's on his way out when he has had a lot of injuries, and just observing him moving as he goes up and down the field, I think he is getting to the point in his career where that probably is not going to be something he can do as easily. And I think Out-Nuri would be a good thing for him to get more accustomed to that role, because he is such a young player, and he's a great offensive threat, and I think he needs to work. It seems like he needs to work more on his defensive presence, as well as start hitting the weight room. Needs to get jacked, maybe eat more hamburgers or something. I don't know. So yeah, that's why I would say more hamburgers, and you'd be Johnny's backup.
I've been on the record as saying he's not the future of this club. I think any playing time he gets this season is just going to be showcasing for a move this summer. I still feel like Out-Nuri is the future there. I know he's struggling some defensively, but again, 19 years old, they still have to learn. So Johnny probably will be the top choice if he's able to come back, just depending on where we're sitting. I could see him like late February, all of March being the number one guy, and then having Aït-Nouri try and finish out the season late. And Marcel, hey, this is why we signed him originally, was to be a center back / right wing back. So it makes sense, and he can do all those things. He can come off the bench. For instance, if Johnny comes in, they're not going to be playing him 90 minutes a game. After 60 minutes, Marcel is one of those guys you can bring in there. So I like that. Him a backup at center back and to Johnny, but for the most part, I see only Johnny getting maybe 5 or 6 starts.
I think for me, I'm disagreeing, and I could see it happening in terms of ruthlessness, in terms of the evolution of the squad. But I think it'll be interesting when Johnny does come back, that if he quickly gets to the heights that he got previously, that's the type of player that if Nuno wants to keep around, he'll be locked down and he'll get a new contract like Dendonker's got and Kilman. I think it'll be interesting that if he does come back and play through the remaining months of the season, then yeah, that could be an opportunity that he's one player that's potential to move on in the summer. But yeah, I agree to the extent that Marcel was always signed as the perennial reserve and the bench player that could play in a number of different positions, and Aït-Nouri is one for the future that he can learn and develop that way.
By the way, I love Johnny's workout pictures that he posts. It's just great. I love seeing him work out, and there's like close-ups of his legs, and it's just great.
Yeah,
Just like the size of tree trunks. So
that's right. Next up, a good friend of the show, Stephen Williams from the Britannia side near to us here in Rosenberg, Texas. Stephen asks on Facebook, looking at our performances through half of the season, what do you think is a reasonable and achievable position to finish this season?
it's a hard one. My hope is 5th, 4th. I think the reality is probably 10th. 10th is probably a reasonable position, I think. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I was going to say 10th. I think that's the most reasonable one. I might be able to move up and get another 7th place, but the fact is they're missing so many of their normal guys, and without Raul, I don't see them making a run at Europe. So I would be extremely happy with anything between 8 and 12, honestly. I'd feel like, okay, probably some of the young guys have gotten to develop. We made it through pretty decently without Raul. I think anybody talking relegation is just full of nonsense.
I don't get that at all, but yeah.
Yeah.
There's two parts to that question, is that one is reasonable and one's achievable. And I'm in the camp that a reasonable finish this season, with everything going on, 10th to 12th bracket. I think a top half finish this year, they should be applauded for. So that would be my reasonable one. Achievable, I still, if all the stars align somehow, I don't think 7th is out of the question that we could get there, but we definitely need bodies back in terms of the guys that are out, and 1 or 2 new faces certainly in this transfer window to make that even a possibility. Next up from Facebook, we have Francisco Castro, who asks, how many games do teams play per season? Now, with this one, and especially this week with one of the cup competitions kicking off for us, it's not a simple answer. So the domestic EPL parties, in that we play all the other 19 teams twice home and away, so that's a 38 game league season. In England, we've got 2 domestic straight knockout cup competitions. So one of those is the League Cup that starts earlier in the season, or Carabao Cup, which is the sponsor's name. and also the traditional FA Cup, the third round for us starts this week. But with both of these competitions, it varies. Each have different rules in terms of what happens if there's a tie in that first game, and whether there's a replay or whether they carry on that game and take it into overtime and get a penalty kicks to get a winner on the day. So I think with the FA Cup, it'd be at least another 6 extra games if we got to the final. And then throw in last season when we had European competition with the Europa League, and with that the early stages of that competition too, in that we had the qualifying rounds to get through. I think that was something like 56 games in total that season, touching 60. So yeah, a crazy amount of games when you factor all of that in, when really the league season's only 38.
Yeah, and so we're about to hit the halfway point of the season. The Carabao Cup is almost done here. We've played 17 games, so 2 more, and we've hit the halfway point. So January's a pretty good barometer there, and I think it's a great question because there's a lot of new fans to soccer in the EPL. It's great to get to explain how many games there actually are and that you can look forward to.
We got a really good one next, and it's Drew Gentry who's been in touch on Twitter. It's about our colour scheme of the jersey and what actually constitutes the old gold colour scheme that we play under. What I'm going to do is I'm going to retweet this and try and do it as a poll and share it on Facebook too, so we could try and get somewhat of a consensus ahead of next week's episode and let Drew know them. But of the image that he sent over, I'm going personally for the B option, which is not it's not so bright orange, and that was from the mid 90s, so that's my pick anyway. But I'll put that out there for you good listeners to contribute to if you can.
We're Wolverhampton, we're on our way back.
All right, so let's look ahead to this week. We got 2 games coming up. One's league play and one is the FA Cup. So starting Friday, our run in the FA Cup begins, hopefully the start of a long run. It's Friday afternoon. We're playing Crystal Palace. So how are we feeling about this? Is Nuno just going to go with young kids for this one or go all out and try and win it?
You mean his regular squad, the young squad that we've been playing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he might try and win it this year. I feel like last year I feel like we threw in the towel after whatever the first round we got past, but I think he might actually make a go of it just to say he gets some more experience under the belts of the younger players, and also to showcase that we are still a competitive team and we can compete at the highest level. I feel especially, I don't know if you guys saw the interview with him, the post-match of the Brighton, but he was not in a good place, and I think he wants to get that winning culture and vibe back in the team, which would be great.
Yeah, a win's a win, and winning builds momentum, and I don't think he's got much wiggle room really with the squad at the moment to change it up or bring some new bodies in. I think Podence has already been ruled out, so that's one that he's got to play around. I think we're going to see a team probably similar to Brighton in formation, but similar to Man United in players, that it's a game that probably Hoover starts instead of Semedo, where we've got the flexibility to rest some players. Maybe Otasoe comes in for Moutinho, Vitinha gets another start, even though it's been a struggle. I can't see anything other than Silva starting again, because I don't know. It's a tricky one. That false 9 showed some positives against Man United, but that was a totally different situation to what we'll be facing on Friday versus a Crystal Palace team at home. I think he's going to have to go for it based on the fact that he's not got much flexibility within the squad to bring different guys in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you're going to be able to get anything other than a mid-table finish this year, you're going to have to go for the FA Cup. And they did a couple of years ago, and it was a fantastic run. So I'd like to see that again. Honestly, I'd be okay with Hoover starting against Everton more than I would Crystal Palace. I almost want to see him go out all out this week. That's just kind of my opinion, but we'll see. I do think the 4-2-3-1 is what they'll come out in. I think Odasoe, I think that is a good call, but I wouldn't be shocked if he comes in for Neves. Because I'm not sure how Neves and Odasoe would do in the same midfield. I think that's just a pure defensive midfield then. So I'd like to see him team with Moutinho and see what can happen.
I think the role Neves plays is more... at the moment, when he's on form, he's undroppable, because in that 4, it's very hard to dictate the play that Cody was able to do from sweeper and having that more space and that more time. I think in a 4, Neves is defensive, but he has more license to look up and spread the play somewhat and look for the wings. Otasoe gave the impression of a player who could get box to box. I think it could be a duo that could work, but it needs game time, and we need to see it.
Yeah.
And quick reminder, with this game, it's on ESPN Plus on Friday afternoon, not on Peacock or NBC. So you either need to find your local pub and hope they have ESPN Plus. I'd call beforehand, or I think you can just subscribe pretty much. What is it, $5.99 a month, Paul? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that. A few of the providers may have it bundled in with your cell phone, or I know I've got personally Hulu that's bundled with Disney Plus for the kid, and ESPN Plus is added to that as well because it's all part of the Disney family. So that's a little bit of good fortune in my household. But yeah, there's different ways that you can get about watching it.
There's also Wolves TV if you want to listen to it on, on the Wolves TV app, which is free.
That's true. That's
and
true.
I really was in Mikey Burrows and I was in Tom.
Andy Thompson.
Yeah, Andy Thompson.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great. Great.
I agree.
So.
And then we have Everton on Tuesday. Everton's one of those teams. They're at the top half of the table, but they're another one that kind of is riding a little bit of a roller coaster. So I'll be curious to see how we're going to handle this game.
They just lost to somebody. Who did they lose to?
West Ham this past weekend,
right?
Which it was a very Everton result in that they've always got that risk in them that they look very good one week, but then they can lose to a team like West Ham without doing those guys too much disrespect. But yeah, on the day, I've watched them a few times this season, and they're certainly potent up top, and they're going to pose a lot of challenges, I think. And their acquisitions have been pretty stellar. And I think this is the kind of where they're signing players that we want to be linked with. And we're not quite there yet in that there's these stages of evolution of Premier League teams. And Everton have had it for a number of years that they've typically been underachievers and they've never won cups or challenged for a league title. But you'd have some seasons where they'd be there or thereabouts in the Europa conversations, then others that are fighting for their lives and facing relegation. So they've really been up and down the past kind of 10 years or so. But I think the caliber of the coach and the players that they've brought in, it's going to, like the Chelsea game, that it's going to be a really stern test, and depends what Wolves shows up, because they could hammer us. But then again, it's a team that if they come to play, we could get a result and we could beat them. So I think it's got some parallels to that Chelsea game last month for me.
So let's hear the predictions. First, Crystal Palace. Are we winning?
Definitely. 3-0.
Woo! Mike's coming out hot.
3, yeah. I got to throw it because we scored 3 last match, so I'm feeling good.
I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw, and I'm going to need to find out whether it's going to go to a replay or not, or whether it's going to be decided on the day. I just got that. I got that a little dread about it that we might score and then let a late one in, and it's going to be dragged out to either extra time or we've got to go to their place.
There is no FA Cup replays this year.
Okay, that's probably COVID
wow.
related and everything.
Yes.
Okay, 1-1, but we'll win on penalties.
I like it. Man, we need a good defensive performance. I'm going to go 1-0 win.
All right.
And now Everton.
Oh, man, I would say 1-1 draw, depending on which Everton shows up. Everton. Yeah, like Paul was saying, like I feel like they are up and down. I feel like since they just lost to West Ham, there will be desperately wanting a win, and seeing that we're not our best right now, they will be coming for us, and they have the firepower. I know that for sure.
If I've just gone saying that there's parallels to the Chelsea game for me, then it's probably against my better judgment, but I'm going to say that it's going to be the same result in a 2-1.
Nice.
With a Diego Costa winner from Christian Eriksen. Direct from the corner. So.
That'd be great.
Is none of that going to happen? Probably.
I'm going to take a 1-1 draw, I think. I could see Wolves having a 1-0 lead for a while and then last 20 minutes giving up something. So that's what I'm going to go with, 1-1 draw. On to previewing the opposition ahead of the Everton game. And to do this, we're joined by friend of the show, Sam Houston. He's one half of the presenting duo of the Drunkard United Football Show. That's a podcast dedicated to the English Premier League. So how you doing today, Sam?
Fantastic. First time, long time. Love what you're doing over there. Thank you for having me on the show.
So we're midway through the season now. Is it in line with your expectations and those of the blue half of Merseyside?
Ironically, as an Everton fan, we're not typically used to saying this, but yes, we are exactly where we currently want to be. We're in the sniff of top 4, right around, I believe we're currently in 5th. We've been in and around that the entire season. It is weird and is compacted, and as much injuries and craziness has gone on for all teams in the league. I can't help but be satisfied with where we are. We've taken some big scalps, and the team seems to be responding tremendously to Ancelotti.
I think that's one real standout for me, is that this time last year, that was such a phenomenal appointment for the managerial role. When you have that type of figurehead that's so well regarded and has that pedigree, and then with the signings that you've made and the development that he's done to those players that you already had, then I think it does really set a firm foundation for you to go onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
So
let us not forget that the British press said Carlo Ancelotti was too good for us, and host is a stupid gooner. So I like to remind him of our appointment versus their appointment on a regular basis as well.
And so you should. In terms of danger men, informed players that you've got at the moment, who are the ones that we need to be wary of as our teams come up against each other?
Obviously, our man at the point, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, is second currently in the league in scoring with 11. He has had a little bit of a dry spell, and I think that happens to come along with the fact that the creative players around him have been hurt. But both of those players have just come back. James actually got a few minutes in the West Ham loss this past week. Then also Richarlison got a start with the side as well. He had just had a concussion protocol from the defeat to Manchester City in the League Cup quarterfinal from, I think, everybody's public enemy number 1, Bruno Fernandes, unless you're obviously a United fan and then you love him, but a little cheap shot that he threw into Richarlison that knocked him directly into Matip and knocked him out so bad. Richarlison was walking sideways off the pitch, and so he had missed a few matches. So those two creative players allow Calvert-Lewin to get open in spaces, and that's when we're very dangerous. But I think there's a very important X factor that we need to look at, and that is the Goodison cat. To my understanding, the little black kitty is ready to rock and roll, is traveling with the team, and will be on the bench against Wolves. And we all remember that pathway of the, let's face it, the cat covered the entire pitch. It was an absolute lunatic. You all could not stop him. We're definitely using him, and he will be contributing to a victory.
Yeah, I think I need to do some more due diligence on what the COVID protocols are for having a cat travel with the team. So I'm sure you can't confine a cat to a bubble. Yeah, we'll need to be diligent about that, I think.
That Goodison cat, you cannot confine at all. He is a free spirit.
So we've both got cup games between our league game, and you've got a pretty good idea of how Wolves are set up and the players that we've got at our disposal. How do you think we're going to do against your team? And in particular, is there any players that you think from us could cause a problem for you guys?
Obviously, up top on the wing, Traore he's just a beast, and someone that big and strong should not also be that fast. Oh yeah, he also shouldn't be that skillful as well. Nieto seems to be finding a world without Jimenez, which is good. Do you expect Podence to be available for our match? I know he's out for the FA Cup match.
Sure. A little too early, I'd say, at the moment, because it's not really come out what his injury is at this stage. But I think if they're being upfront and saying he's missing this week, then that would give you maybe an idea that he's being protected ahead of that game. And that's hopefully that's the case, as we are threadbare at the moment.
If you have him, you then have those three offer speed and the ability to dribble at an opponent. And for us, we've been missing Seamus Coleman, who just came back, and we've also been missing Luca Digne on the other side. So if you have Podence healthy, the three people up top offer speed and a directness, which is exactly what you need to go at the Everton defense. We are still currently missing Alon, who plays holding midfielder for us. He tends to take care of those problems, and not having him, Davies has done a serviceable effort, but he's not Alon. And then for us, we've been running this flat back four of all central defenders. Now, Seamus Coleman has gotten healthy, and Luca Digne is still hurt, which that also hurts us quite a bit as well. Although Ben Godfrey has done a great job on the left-hand side, but he is no Luca Digne. Luca Digne offers width and attacking forward. So the big key for you guys is allow those three creative players to be very direct and go right at Everton. If you try to play the crossing game, Michael Keane, Mason Holgate, and Yuri Mina are going to clear everything all day long. You're not going to beat them. You can't rely on set piece world, because Everton happens to be one of the best teams in set piece defending. Subsequently, you don't want to give up a bunch of set pieces, because all those big meaty foreheads I just mentioned are on the other end too. I really think for you guys, direct football and forcing our midfield to have to create plays and create space is what would probably be your best game plan against us.
And outlook for the remainder of the season, Sam, where's it going to go for the Toffees?
It's top six or bust. That's really where you want to be. Now, easier said than done when you look at the top 10 teams, and they're all pretty much separated by 3 to 6 points. It's that tight. It's for just a neutral fan of the Premier League as a whole, this season's been awesome, because legitimately anyone can win it. We all tend to think that City's is starting to work their way up the table. As much as it pains me, obviously Liverpool minus the Dutch tulip are clearly going to be competing. And don't look now, suddenly Manchester United are good again. Like, it just seems odd. But the league's been fantastic. For Everton, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that still needs to be done. There's a lot of very hefty wages we're still on, which we've shed a lot of them, and we're shedding a few more. It's getting the new right pieces, getting younger. A good example, someone like Gylfi is not worth $100,000 a week we pay for him, especially when you could find someone who's probably younger and cheaper and can do the exact same job. For someone who's going to be ultimately a bench player or a fill-in player when someone's hurt, that's the changes we need to make as a side. Carlo's still putting his stamp on this team and what they're going to be. I would expect us to be fairly active in the January window, as we know we are going to be shedding some money at the end of the season on people that are just going to get to walk on frees. For us, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw us pick up 2 players or possibly even 3 to just round out the team even more. And for me, it's Europe. Let's see how the FA Cup goes. You can't say anything until at least the 5th round of the FA Cup if you have real aspirations, because the 3rd and the 4th round are who the hell knows. But for Everton, we're starved for a trophy. It's been since 1995 that we last won the FA Cup. It's been since 1987 since we last won the league. So we're desperate for a trophy. We really are. So I would expect us to really come out swinging during the FA Cup as well. Top 6, we're happy.
And to round out this segment, you're a huge supporter of our show. We love yours. So please let our listeners know all about your show and how they can listen, get in touch with you guys.
All right. I am one of the hosts of the Drunkard United Football Show, DU Football Show for short. Let's see here. We drink excessively. We cuss in abundance. We have a gambling section where a chicken picks games for us. And she does better than the rest of us, which is really sad. And she has a better social life than the rest of us, which is really sad. We recap the entire league. You want your X's and O's as a Wolves fan, you're the show to be listening to. If you want to hear about the rest of the league and what's going on in quick little snippets, we're your show. And we do it in a fun way. And for us, we've been doing it now for 3 seasons. The response has been great. We've really enjoyed it. We're highly interactive. So at DU Football Show on all the socials and dufootballshow@gmail.com. And wherever you get your podcast, DU Football Show, you can find us.
All right, to wrap up today, Mike, would you let your listeners know more about your supporters group in Richmond and how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Currently, we are not meeting, but I have recently actually started a blog and just a general place to, share our fandom. The address is rampages.us Wolves Virginia. So it's rampages.us/Wolves Virginia, no space, /. Yeah, and hopefully soon COVID will end and we'll get to meet. You can find me most often or not watching or listening to the matches at my home with my son, who's also a Wolves fan. He's one. And my wife, who allows me to watch Wolves and listen to Wolves. But actually, she wears her jersey sometimes too, which is great. But you can reach me at shadml@vcu.edu.
We'll share all of those in the show notes as well. So
Great, yeah.
So listeners, thanks for your continued. If you are listening for the first time, please subscribe. Share it with a friend who may be getting into soccer for the first time and picking the Wolves as their team. Also, give it a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform of choice. This helps us tremendously to push a whole lot of Wolves out there. We're going to be back right after the Everton game next week. It's a slobber knocker of a show that's a sort of preview ahead of the West Brom game with a special guest appearance from Wolves legend, the one and only Steve Ball. So it really is going to be a must listen. In the meantime, stay safe out there, look after each other. In Nuno we trust, and up the Wolves.